Let's talk about a second disease that touches the church that runs along the line of this first one. Let's call it the pursuit of things over relationships. So here is another disease that I think is infiltrating the church. A lot of talk about relationships. A lot of talk about the fact that we need to lose ourselves in the lives of people, and we need to love each other and give ourselves to each other. And yet the bottom line is that we pursue things with a passion. And it just cuts the heart out of relationships. I'll give you an illustration. I was in the Radio Bible Conference in Ventura, and we were sitting at a table eating dinner, and a waitress, or actually she was the hostess for the dining room at this place where we had dinner, came up and said, I want to introduce myself to you. I'm a Christian, and I listen to Grace to You all the time, and I want to meet you. And she talked, and I could see that she was imminent to deliver. Great with child. And I said, you're going to have a baby very soon. Isn't it about time for you to stop your working? Oh, she said, yeah. She said, I'm going to have to take 2 weeks off when this baby's born. I said, 2 weeks off? Oh, she said, yeah, I'll take 2 weeks off before I can come back to work. I said, you mean you're not going to stay home and take care of this baby? Oh, she said, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? Well, she said, my husband and I bought a large home, and I have a mortgage that has to be paid. And my instant response, and I probably was a little out of line, was, you have a mortgage, you have a baby. You don't mean you would sacrifice a baby for a mortgage. But that is precisely what she meant. That is exactly what she meant. And she was sorry that she ever introduced herself to me in the first place. I said, may I be so bold as suggest to you that you should keep your child and lose your house before you should keep your house and lose your child. But we're into things. We're into things. I was listening on the radio as I was driving in. And 3 out of 4 home buyers, this guy was giving a report, 3 out of 4 home buyers are buying bigger houses. 3 out of 4. Now think about that mathematically. That's going to make an interesting crunch at the top end and a whole lot of empty houses at the other end. But apart from that, they asked this expert, what do people look for? The first thing they said was curb appeal. Is it the kind of house that when somebody pulls up to it, they'll go, wow, and you'll feel proud that you own this house? It's all feeding ego. And they said the second thing you look for in a home is entry appeal. Curb appeal was number 1. Entry appeal. When you open the door, do you go, ah? The first thing I look for in a house, does it have air conditioning? The second thing I look for in a house, does it keep the rain out? But we are into curb appeal and entry appeal. Never met a person in India who was interested in curb appeal or entry appeal. We are into a whole different mentality. By the way, he gave 5 things. None of them had anything to do with function at all. At all. They all had to do with mystique. And the newest thing is 4-car garages. 4-car garages. It's really amazing where our society is going. As a boy growing up, I had a little bedroom with 2 twin beds. I was in one, my grandmother was in the other. You say, but you had no privacy. Right. I had no privacy. But I didn't know I needed any. I really wasn't going to do anything I didn't want anybody seeing. I couldn't listen to anything on, I'll tell you, when your grandmother's in there, it does affect the radio situation. Especially also if your grandmother snores, it affects. That was life. I remember Esther Fan, this wonderful missionary, Chinese missionary we met in Hong Kong, said to me the most traumatic moment of her life was her honeymoon. Because she had been raised, get this, in a 700 square foot tenement with 4 entire families. And her honeymoon night was traumatic because it was the first time in her life she'd ever been alone in any place with only one person. She couldn't handle it. Amazing how our culture has changed. You have parents seeking things, and they've got curb appeal, and they've got entry appeal, and the kids are on drugs, right? You say, why does this happen? I'll tell you, this is the first century of advertising. Do you know that? This is the first century that any people have ever been exposed to mass advertising. You see, it used to be before this century that you bought something because you what? You got that. You knew that. I didn't even have to tell you that. You bought it because you needed it. And I'll tell you, if you didn't need it, what? You didn't buy it. Now look around your house and identify everything you don't need. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Well, why do you have that stuff? Because people keep telling you to get it. It's image. It's part of image. We've been sold image instead of need. And this comes into the church. And you have people who are running fast to acquire, to purchase, to buy. And in the process, the children's division, the youth division, the college department is trying to pick up the pieces of kids who have no relationship with their parents. We don't know what relationships are. Who are like the little boy this morning who's on his 4th daddy. Devastating our society. How does this impact the church? I'll tell you how it impacts the church. Here we are, a bunch of people madly pursuing the building of our own little kingdom, and the Bible tells us that we're supposed to intensely, intimately fellowship with one another around the deep things of God. And you know, to be honest with you, we don't have time or interest in that. That's a tough turnaround. Very difficult. Because of the continuing isolationism that the pursuit of things creates. People are judged by the kind of car they drive, not the strength of their marriage. They're judged by the curb appeal of their house, not the character of their children. And when that comes into the church, people who are supposed to be intimately related for significant benefit to one another as the Spirit ministers mutually can't find the space or the time to care. It's tragic. Absolutely tragic. And so the church is crippled relationally.